Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Jamna Imtiaz. I will be at Millennium Minds, UK, the IELTS instructor. And it's very nice that most of you have joined. Welcome on board. To begin, if you guys are comfortable and you don't mind this, maybe you could turn your cameras on so I can see present and interacting. Just your cameras if you're comfortable. Hi Mujahid, I see you've turned your camera on. Nice to see you. I see Ahmed as well.
Thank you.
We've got two Ahmeds, so both of them have their cameras on. That's great. And interestingly, we've got a third Ahmed and he's turned his camera on as well. All right, so because today is a Saturday, I'm just going to start off with a little bit of a just an icebreaker. How do you feel on a Saturday today? You can use your emojis on your phone, on your laptop, and drop it down in the in-call messages. For example, this is how I'm feeling today. Check out the in-call messages. It is right next to your mute icon. If you click the three dots, you will find in-call messages, and then the chat to the meeting will open. Okay, nice. That masterclass. Reacted with an emoji as well. Okay, perfect. So the IELTS Masterclass today is on the topic of smart learning techniques that actually work for you. There was a student that did in a response that IELTS. Just thumbs up so I know. Okay, Amber knows about it, Miran knows, Ahmed knows, Aliza knows. Okay, so most of you do know what IELTS is about. The full form of IELTS is for the International English Language Testing System, and it is conducted by British Council. Okay, before we would have the IELTS examination being conducted on paper-based. So you would go into your authorized centers, just like how Millennium Minds is a center. You would go to the centers and you would begin with having the paper, solving the paper, but now times have changed. The exam is completely computer-based. And they aim to test 4 skills of yours. So the 4 skills, they start with your listening, then you have your reading, then you have your writing, and then you have your speaking. So 4 skills from which they assess your standing in English. Your standing in English is given by a band score. And the maximum band score that someone can realistically achieve is a band 8.5. The 4 skills that you have, the listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking, each of those get a separate band score. And then they accumulate it together and you get a complete band score. But why am I talking to you about IELTS? Why have you all joined to get information about IELTS? That's because you are trying to get your hands on a global passport, like I would term it as. Because once you do IELTS, then you can apply anywhere and proceed with studies, proceed with work. Yeah? So you open yourself up to a range of opportunities just by giving this exam. So why make it a hurdle, right? Take the right guidance, put some effort in, just as how we offer at Millennium Minds, and then pursue your studies, pursue your great job opportunities, and build a future for not just yourself, but others around you, your family, your friends, right? So the main purpose of this particular IELTS Masterclass is going to be giving you those tiny tricks that actually have a large impact on how you get the scores in your paper. Majority of the institutes that you refer to, they would start with giving you the basic skills of how you begin attempting the paper, using most of the strategies, but there are foundations that you need to practice and build up on those skills in order to advance in these skills. We're going to be taking a look at that. Most of the time when you face the IELTS paper, it's not because your English is weak, although we're in the subcontinent region, but to be very honest, everyone speaks in English. Everyone can understand English. So why is it that's entirely about English we're not able to do it? It's simply because we misunderstand the paper. Like I mentioned before, the test is not about English. The test is about your skills, your command on the language. First of all, if you have ineffective learning methods, you're not going to be catching on to the language or the attempting of the paper like you should be. Then there are passive learning strategies. If you learn passively, you don't catch on to the essence of what you're required to do. And lastly, memorization. Now, fun fact, if you are training with other institutes around yourself to memorize, either for speaking, either for writing. Now, you know what happens? Us, the IELTS trained examiners and the instructors, we have been taught on how to catch on to memorized answers. And when we see that these particular students have used the are using it in their speaking, unfortunately, so here at our academy, I as the instructor, I come up with this curriculum where it designs for you to have these foundations gradually grow to the point that when you are writing, you're using your own mind, you're using your own ideas. You get to that level that you can easily write an essay out. You can even speak and interact and have long discussions with what you want to say in the set standard of the language. The very first thing. Now, if I've got science students here, or if I've got working professionals over here that are in the education field, you would just be looking at these diagrams and agreeing that this is the right approach to learning. This is how the curriculum for you guys has been designed in regards to this particularly. Because the problem for the students that are wanting to attempt IELTS is not intelligence, nor the problem is entirely the ineffective learning methods. So what we do is we utilize the learning pyramid and we utilized spaced repetition. This means that using these methods in the classroom, you have like a triple jumpstart to the learning effectiveness compared to standard outcomes. So when you choose to register for our classes, you're not just signing up for information, you're going to be investing in a proven cognitive system that most programs completely ignore. We're also trying to focus on your brain, the psychology of a student. We're not just trying to give you deaths by lecture. And we are not focusing on just 5%. For example, today, you'll see that I will give you the lecture, I'll give you the information, but you will be practically applying it as well. Because this 5%, it's not impactful at all. We go for a rather high impact active implementation. Now you might be saying, why am I showing you these diagrams and why am I giving you these informations? It's because I am assuring the students, all of you who are on board with us, that when you join with us, you're not just going to be attending a class. Rather, you're going to be mastering a skill, which is so much of a stronger approach that you require to do the test. Okay, so it's not just, yes, there are pointers like learning vocabularies, learning sentence structures, understanding grammar. Those things are very important, yes, but that's not all. That's just 75% or 50% of it. Our classrooms are limited because we focus individually on all the students. So moving ahead, let's talk about the IELTS exam now, for what you guys have joined. The very first thing is your listening paper. Like I mentioned before, your listening and reading and writing and not speaking, but these 3 exams, the listening, reading, and writing, these happen on the computer itself. So there is a system already, and you're just supposed to enter into the center, log in with your credentials already provided to you, and begin doing the assessment. There are no breaks between the examinations. So when you start your listening, after you're done with it, your reading exam will start. Same is the case for writing. As soon as you're done with reading, your writing will start. Okay. Your listening exam comprises of 40 questions, and you have 30 minutes. The audio for the listening only plays once. Okay? So what they're trying to assess in your listening is your ability to comprehend discussions, comprehend basic generic information, such as how to register, how to have a social communication with someone. They try to assess those things. There are 4 parts to the listening paper. The very first part has 2 speakers, and those 2 speakers, they talk on a social situation. For example, I'll take anyone's name here. For example, Maria calls me Yamna, the instructor, and she's inquiring about the IELTS examination. And I am communicating back to her about when the classes are starting, what is the class strength, what is the course curriculum, and through those things, what are we doing? We're communicating in a social situation. Now, an assistant of mine, what would she be doing? She would be noting down Maria's points. She would be writing down Maria's name, her age, when she would like to start, what is the class strength, what is being offered, ... That's what happens in the first part of your listening examination. You will most commonly find form questions. You will most commonly find simple fill in the blanks questions that you have to listen, names, dates, places, and jot those down simultaneously. Now let me say this in Urdu. जो आपका listening paper है, वो 40 minutes का होता है. और उस 30 minutes का होता है, sorry. और उसके अंदर 40 questions होते हैं. आपने aim ये करना है कि 40 में से आप 30 to 31 achieve करें. Like आपने 30 answers सही लिखे हुए हैं. और फिर जो आपका listening paper है, उसके अंदर 4 parts होते हैं. जो सबसे पहला पार्ट होता है उसके अंदर दो लोगों की कन्वर्सेशन होती है एक सोशल सिचुएशन के ऊपर, बिल्कुल बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन। और जो सेकंड पार्ट होता है, सेकंड पार्ट के अंदर सिर्फ एक बंदा बात कर रहा होता है और वो एक बंदा एक सोशल सिचुएशन के ऊपर बात कर रहा होता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप फैसल मस्जिद जाते हैं और फैसल मस्जिद के बाहर एक टूर गाइड खड़ा हुआ है जो आपको पूरा गाइड करेंगे, बताएंगे कि फैसल मस्जिद में कौन कौन सी जगह है, कहाँ पे आप जा सकते हैं, क्या कर सकते हैं, तो वो जो इंफॉर्मेशन है वो आपने एक ही दफा आप जब सुन रहे होंगे तो सुनते हुए आप साथ साथ अपने आंसर्स को नोट डाउन करेंगे। टाइमर स्क्रीन पे साथ चल रहा होता है, ठीक है, तो आप टाइमर को देखते हुए आपने पेपर साथ अपना भी अटेम्प्ट करना होता है, क्योंकि ऑडियो ना आगे जाती है ना पीछे जाती है। अच्छा, अब जो थर्ड पार्ट होता है पेपर का, लिसनिंग का, उसके अंदर आपके पास 3 या 4 स्पीकर्स होते हैं, मैक्सिमम 4 स्पीकर्स होते हैं। अच्छा, वो जो होते हैं वो एक एकेडमिक डिस्कशन करते हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, कुछ यूनिवर्सिटी के बच्चे बैठे हुए हैं एक गैदरिंग में और वो डिस्कस कर रहे हैं अपनी थीसिस टॉपिक के ऊपर, या फिर वो किसी कोर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो वो जो भी लैंग्वेज यूज करेंगे वो बहुत एकेडमिक होगी, बहुत टेक्निकल होगी, उसके अंदर आपके सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक वोकैबुलरी यूज हो रही होगी, ठीक है। तो जो फिर आपका लास्ट पार्ट होता है, द फोर्थ पार्ट, उसके अंदर एक स्पीकर होता है और जो वो एक स्पीकर होता है वो हमेशा एक एकेडमिक डिस्कशन के ऊपर ही बात कर रहे होते हैं। एंड उनका टॉपिक आपको, इट कुड बी लाइक अ प्रोफेसर, ठीक है, और प्रोफेसर जो है वो बात कर रहे हैं ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज, तो ऑब्वियसली इफ देयर टॉकिंग ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज तो काफी ज्यादा टेक्निकल वर्ड्स होंगे, एकेडमिक वर्ड्स होंगे। सो दैट इज द एंटायर listening paper for you. Knowing the number of speakers, knowing what particular topic those speakers will be talking about is really important for you, because आप फिर strategically उस paper को approach करेंगे। आपको पता है कि part 1, part 2 एक social setting के अंदर है, so आप 30 seconds spend करेंगे on each question in order to understand it and listen and type it. Okay? लेकिन अगर part 3 है और part 4 है, because it's academic, you are going to be spending 1 minute and 20 seconds on that question. So now the students that we have in our class, we did have a student from our previous batch just join, but what they would practice is they would time themselves while doing every different part of the question. There are a total of 14 different question styles that show up in the paper. 14 different question styles. उसमें MCQs भी होते हैं, उसके अंदर आपके true and false not given, yes no not given, locating information, matching information, ... There are so many question styles, and to those question styles we learn the strategies and we take an approach and we time ourselves कि अगर इस टाइप ऑफ ये वाला क्वेश्चन हमारे सामने आएगा तो हमने इसको स्ट्रेटेजिकली कैसे अप्रोच करना है। Why? Because the entire paper is about strategy, time management, and also your vocabulary range. Vocabulary range की मैं इसलिए बात कर रही हूँ because आपका entire IELTS paper जो है that is about paraphrasing, जो students को यहाँ पे hurdle face होता है। So for example, मैं आपको आगे examples भी बताऊंगी, I'm going to go into the depth of it, but that was your listening paper, quite extensively mentioned to you. अगर आप लोग अपने साथ notes बना रहे हैं तो it would be very easy to follow, but for now I hope the lecture was concise and comprehensive enough. Just send me a thumbs up अगर आपको कोई confusion नहीं है about the listening paper. Okay, great. I know it sounds, as soon as you hear it, that the audio is only going to play once and you have to write your answers down simultaneously. Yes, it sounds a little scary, but the listening paper is the easiest paper out of all the others. Ali, do you have a question? Okay, if anyone does have a question, you can definitely raise your hand, or you can also use the in-call messages and drop a message down there. Okay, so that was about the listening paper. Now reading. The reading paper as well has 40 questions. It's similar to the listening paper. The only difference is listening में आप सुन के जवाब लिखते हैं, reading में आप देख के जवाब लिखते हैं. So reading, you will be having 3 passages in part 1, part 2, and part 3. So 3 passages. And it will be academic if you're going for the academic paper. And if you are going for the general training, then you will be having more of easier articles and newspaper articles and advertisements in your reading. So it's more of an easier paper. ठीक है? तो reading के अंदर आपके पास 30 minutes नहीं होते, आपके पास 1 hour होता है. और हर section के ऊपर, there are 3 sections, because there are 3 passages, you will be having 20 minutes per section. And you will be having the same different question styles that you had in listening. So listening में जैसे 14 different question styles थे, उसी तरह आपके पास reading में भी question styles होते हैं, और उनकी भी वही approaches होती हैं जो listening में होती हैं. So we, make it, combine it and combine all the strategies, combine all the knowledge of why this type of question has been asked, and knowing what the examiner wants from you, and then we practice it ahead. So then it becomes very easy to solve every question type. Then you have your writing. Writing has 2 tasks. You will have 1 hour to do the writing paper. The very first task, you are supposed to write a report if you are giving the academic paper, and you then write out an essay in task 2. Task 1, the minimum word count is 150 words, and you're supposed to spend 20 minutes on that. Task 2, you're supposed to spend 40 minutes. And your minimum word count is 250 words. Then when we talk about the general training paper, ठीक है, general training paper के अंदर task 1 आप एक letter लिखते हैं, और task 2 आपका ऐसे ही होता है, लेकिन आपकी grading थोड़ी सी differently होती है. I think most of you might be a little confused about the academic paper I'm mentioning and the general training paper I'm mentioning. So just to clarify that, if you are pursuing working opportunities abroad, okay, if you're going for work on a work visa and that type of route, then you're going to go for the general training paper, which is far easier than the academic paper. On the other hand, if you're going for study purposes, or if you're going for advanced visas, or if you're going for better opportunities, then you will be going for the academic paper. The academic paper is a little challenging. However, with the right strategies, it becomes very easy. Can I have a thumbs up for all those that are already working? If you already have jobs. Okay, so if you already have jobs and you are going ahead to pursue a job abroad anywhere, then yes, you're going for the general training paper. But if you're going for bachelor's, or if you're going for master's, or if you're going for PhDs, then you need the academic paper. We work closely with British Council, so we can guide you perfectly on this point as well. All right, and along with that, even if you require for booking of the test dates and any other assistance that you require for the IELTS paper, we are here to guide you and help you, because we are closely affiliated with British Council. Next up in our session is how I proceed in the classes. So I showed you a few diagrams in the start. There was that learning pyramid model. There was the space retention model. Now, what do we do here? Most of the time I do give lectures, but more than that, there is a plethora of material posted onto our classroom. We have a digital workspace as well as a physical workspace. So it's a very hybrid flex mode. We have students that are working. We have students that have classes in the morning. So we try to be very flexible with the students. So just to facilitate you better, we have the Google Classroom where all the resources are available. So on the internet, if you search up IELTS or any practice material, you may come across so many paid resources as well, but we're here to help you with it. All those things are included in what we offer. So you've got your resources, you've got your lectures. With the lectures, you have group discussions. You guys even have to do speaking presentations in the class. There are practice sessions that we do, and we also have peer activities. So I like to have a lively class. Even if it's online or even if it's physical, I would expect that all of you interact with one another and all of you ask questions from one another. But the only code of conduct for the class is you have to do it in English. So if, for example, Adan is talking to Aska, you guys can talk, but I need you guys to talk in English. Okay? So that's something how we structure the classes around. Now let's go and look a little bit at the strategies that I was mentioning before. Now the very baseline strategies that we have are, first and foremost, active listening. Active listening is a really important skill. Keep in mind that you may have come across a lot of seminars and a lot of information regarding communications, yeah? You would be having forms being filled out for you to take communication advancement, communication development. How many of you have seen those or attended those? Just send a thumbs up. Communication की जो होती है, seminars या sessions. Have any one of you taken those? Okay, I guess not. So, oh, Mujahid, you have? Would you be comfortable in sharing your experience on communication? If you could unmute and share that with us.
I'm working as a lead ambassador in Vitanova companies. I perfectly communicate well to those of my members and taken more classes on communications.
So how did you find the classes? What was one thing that they would tell you for communication?
They are all in English, so they are just speakings about communications, basics concept about communications.
Okay. Did they talk about confidence?
Yeah, why not? They all talk about confidence. Confidence is the main key of communication.
Perfect. And what about active listening?
Active listening is also the main key for the communication. If a person did not active listening, so they are not confidently deliver their own talk, they deliver their own thinking to the people.
Perfect. So that's really great. You have a very strong foundation to that. And now, why does a communication class or the knowledge of communication relate to IELTS? Firstly, when you are doing the listening paper, this is the first thing. When you have the knowledge of communication, you comprehend intonation. I'm sorry, the words are too technical. Let me break it down in an easier way. Intonation means when someone is talking to you and they want to stress on a point, they will pause on that point. They will stress on it. Okay? If someone is trying to explain something, there's going to be a particular difference in the rise and fall. अब बात करते हुए बात ऊपर नीचे जिस टोन से जाती है, that is intonation. Once you understand intonation, it becomes easy for you to catch on to what the speakers are saying in the listening test. So for example, many of the students, when they regularly practice, they find out that when the speaker in the listening test is about to give an answer, there is a 1-second pause and a gradual fall. Firstly. Secondly, that particular section that they mention is too fast as well. Too fast. Thirdly, there are distractors in the listening paper. The distractors are set in to challenge you, obviously, but those distractors, when you know how to actively listen, it becomes easy for you to catch that abhi ye baat ko change karne lage. For example, if I was communicating to you guys, I would say, the masterclass has been scheduled for 2:30 p.m. I think it would be better to reschedule it to 3 p.m. So now the question would be asking you, what time is the masterclass? Some students, if they're not actively listening, are not catching on to the tone of what I have said. They would just write down 2:30 p.m. because that is the first time that they have heard, right? But if you were actively listening, you would be able to pause. You wouldn't quickly write down 2:30. You would pause. You would say, "नहीं, इनकी बात अभी थोड़ी tone उनकी decrease हो रही है." इस tone की decrease का मतलब ये है कि बात change होने लगी है. Then you would wait for the second half of the answer. And then as soon as I would say 3 p.m., you would quickly write that down. 3 p.m. So 3 p.m. would have been the masterclass's timing. So that's the distractor that shows up in the listening paper. What example I've given to you is quite easy. Definitely there's a lot of paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means if I am mentioning cost of something, in the question, price would be written. That's also a very simple explanation, but it basically means the same meaning, but different words. So that's present in your listening, that's present in your reading quite a lot. So being able to vigilantly catch on to that is very, very important for you. Now, the very first line that has been mentioned over here, that you need to predict the answers before listening, that is part of active listening as well. You know, for example, it's your birthday and your brother has walked into the room and is trying to ask you indirectly about the favorite flavor of cake that you would like to have. Now, though you know that today is your birthday, you would still, just by listening to them, you would be predicting what your brother is trying to ask you, yeah? And you would be predicting that, oh, it's for my birthday party, yeah? So that's just like a very social example to help you understand that when you do your listening, when you do your reading, these are the two things you add mentally so that you can do the paper better. You read the question, you underline the keywords, and on your own end, you predict what possible answer can be added in here. Okay? So that's what happens in listening and reading. These are the very baseline strategies that you approach with. In reading, there is a strategy called as the 3 S's. The 3 S's is about you skimming, scanning, and surveying. Once you harness those 3 skills, the passage, you don't have to sit and read the passage at great length. There are some questions that require that. There's only that one question that requires you to read the entire passage. But other than that, you do not have to do it. You literally just have to skim for the main idea, scan for the keywords, and jot your question down, answer down. That's it. And we practice that in our classes as well. Reading is the toughest paper for IELTS. Majority of the students do mention that. Just because the reading paper includes reading, which us in the subcontinent region really don't have a practice of. And to highlight this issue, particularly in my classroom, I share authentic websites, either from British Council or from references from British Council for my students, and I encourage them, and I will be encouraging all of you once you're on board, to listen to TED Talks, read those particular articles that I share, and share your views, do summarizations, and all of that. So you will not just be practicing and building your knowledge on just the IELTS paper, rather you will be developing your English skills overall. Because if you're going for masters, if you're going for PhD, if you're going for bachelors at top-notch universities, they don't give you supplementary materials like they do here in Pakistan. You have a far more competitive field over there, and the main mode of communication is the language of English. So why fall short when you're so talented? And when you're learning for the IELTS paper, why miss the opportunity in upscaling your skills to knowing English on a larger scale? So besides the listening and the reading paper, you have the writing and then the speaking. In the writing paper, I have the British Council notes on how the examiners grade the students. So your material, every submission that you do to me, it's all going to be graded accordingly. So this practice that you do is going to get graded exactly as how it will be graded in the exam. So you will already be knowing your or task achievement. It's the same thing, but there's just a little there are several more points to that. Then there is lexical resource, which means your vocabulary. Then there is in speaking, there is pronunciation, and in writing, there is grammatical range and accuracy. So your grammar is important, your sentence structures are important. Usage of linking words, for example, however, moreover, in addition to this, ... that is important. And these are just the foundational strategies to this, but obviously to advance it and to get to a really great band score, you would be requiring training with us where we guide you through it. And then when it comes to speaking, no, they do not want to hear if you have a British accent or not. Sorry. So they do not want to hear if you are communicating like an American or communicating like a British person. Rather, they just want to see how in part 1 of speaking, you will be having an interview with the examiner. The examiner would either be on a Zoom call or the examiner would be physically sitting in front of you, okay? So they want to know in part 1, how well can you respond to social questions? There could be questions like, where do you live? What do you plan to do? Do you work or do you study? Or they could be asking you about your family, your friends, your favorite color, your favorite music. So they take an interview and they want to hear you responding well to it. Part 1 interview lasts for 3 to 4 minutes. Then you have part 2. In part 2 of speaking, you will be provided with a cue card. In the cue card, you are supposed to have 1 minute of preparation time and then 2 minutes of where you speak to the examiner any interruptions. So if majority of you are bachelor students or if you're working people, you know that there are presentations that we deliver, yes? So that is the same thing you do here. You speak to the examiner completely. And what the cue card entails is a description of an event. So for example, a prompt will be provided to you saying, this family, quite simple, but they're trying to catch onto all the nuances that are required. So you will be having task response being assessed. You will be having your lexical resource being assessed, coherence and cohesion being assessed, and lastly, your pronunciation being assessed. Even if you don't have an accent, because if you don't pronounce well, then you don't know the phonetics. You don't know how every letter of this particular language is pronounced as. That just means you don't know the language then. So your examiners are assessing you based on that. You're not supposed to have memorized answers, and it's really if you used academic vocabularies and idioms. I have an entire document that comprises of 30 to 40 idioms that are naturally allowed to be used in your speaking. That enhances you and gets you to a band 8. So part 2 has the cue card, 1 minute of preparation time and 2 minutes of speaking time. And then lastly, in speaking, you will be having a discussion section that lasts for 3 to 4 minutes as well. The examiner in that section wants from you to communicate your ideas with perspectives and opinions in a very coherent way. All right. So the questions could sometimes be like, what do you think about tourism in your country? Do you think tourism is great for the economy? Can you tell me about a new law that has been introduced in your country that is great for the citizens? Do you think giving children phones at a very age is good? So the answer method to these questions need a particular starting. You don't just start narrating an essay to them. You don't go into too long of a response. So how do you cater to this? You start by first saying, I believe, ... and then you use the PECL technique. You raise the point, you give an evidence, you explain it or comment it, and then keep it linked to what they... That is how you get a very comprehensive, part by part, coherent response that you share with the examiner. Doesn't even pour the examiner out. So the entire test lasts for 15 minutes and maximum 15 minutes. You've got a session. Now, the same thing that you do in speaking, the PECL technique, is what you do in writing as well. You raise a point, you give evidence, you comment, and then you keep it linked. That is how you get the perfect body paragraph. All the skills that you practice, all of them are connected. So if you can listen well, definitely you can read well, because you then know a lot of vocabularies and you can read them through. And if you are reading well, then you know how to structure your ideas properly and you can do the writing paper. And if you can pen your thoughts down, then you can definitely speak them out loud as well. So the paper is interconnected. If you're doing great in one skill, you should be doing great in the other skill. The strategies are the same for listening and reading. And when it comes to writing and speaking, the strategies are same for those. So when I've watered down just the strategies to this way, and this can be done this way, doesn't the paper become more easier to attempt? How many of you believe that? Just drop a thumbs up. I want to see how many of you are still in the meet. Okay, Fatima is still here. Rafi is here. Okay. Now, in the in-call messages, if you can send in an emoji that describes what you think about the IELTS paper up till now, after getting all these informations. I'll open up the in-call messages as well. How do you guys feel about the paper now? I've sent mine in. What about the rest of you? Great, Fozia, thank you for your emoji to that. Thank you, Mario. That's it? None of you feel anything else about the paper yet? It feels easier? Okay, great. Okay. Perfect. That's great, guys. So just to summarize it, knowing your synonyms, knowing signpost words, being able to expand the PCL technique, these are your techniques that are going to get you from a band 5.5 to a band 6.5, just by doing these 3 things. How easy is that? And those words is the distractors that I mentioned to you. And in our classes, when you will be using these techniques, you will also be having the spaced repetition technique. So you're not just going to be doing it in one day, you will regularly keep the learning cycle continue. All right. Grammar and vocabulary. Now, the IELTS paper does require you to go a little bit into the depth of learning a range of vocabularies. For that, there is a particular list called the AWL list, which is available on our Google Classroom. It comprises of all the band 7 to band 8 vocabularies that you need in order to have a sophisticated language. Those words are also very commonly presented as synonyms in your reading, listening, and what you should be doing in writing. Secondly, in the grammar section, these 4 points that I've added, these 4 points are the foundations to the grammar that you need. Other than that, we don't have to go 10 years back in time, back in the school time, where we would be learning about present continuous and all of the verbs and all of those things. We would not be doing that at all. So these are just the 4 things that we take a look at in our class, and now take you towards our drawing board, where I will, just for a short example of how we can apply grammar to the most perfect sentences, to make up the most perfect sentences in our classroom. Yeah, I'm not going to go into depths of the others right now because everyone can see my screen? Yes. So you see, learning becomes easier if you are wanting to take the online classes. This is how we use the whiteboard and keep the interaction incoming. And I believe this becomes far easier for the student to understand. Right, so I was talking to you about grammar. And in the grammar, I'm particularly choosing this specific section to share with you. When it comes to writing, plus speaking, there are two things that make your sentences become longer, sophisticated, and it increases your lexical resource as well as your grammatical range and accuracy a whole lot. You go up to a band 7 just by adding these two things into your sentences. What's the first thing? Coordinating conjunctions. And what's the next thing? Subordinating clauses. Now here's the fun bit. This is what I have made for the students to receive this quite easily. I have constructed very easy to use acronyms that you can use. So for coordinating conjunctions, you use fanboys. For subordinating conjunctions, you use a white bus. Now what is this, right? This means for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. This means after, although, W stands for when, whereas, H stands for how, ever or how. Just bear with me while I type it out, and if you're making notes, this is a great supplement for you to write down as well. Though, that, even though, even if, because, before, unless, until, and S, the very last one, it's since. This is how you create your sentences better. For example, if the question is, if the statement you're writing down is, the pollution has increased. Oops, increased, yeah? So what you're going to do? Now this is what? This is a simple sentence. Simple sentences give you a band 5 to a band 5.5. In order to jump to a band 7 to a band 7.5, you are creating a complex sentence. Now, how do you make a complex sentence? You use the acronym a white bus. You just use this. So now this particular sentence, it transforms to this. Although pollution has increased, comma, many countries are implementing environmental policies. Now, where is the subordinating clause? Right here. That is your subordinating clause. This becomes your complex sentence. When you write it out, you go up to a band 7 to 7.5. On the other hand, if you want to have a band 6.5 to a band 7 as well, you will be going for writing out a compound sentence. How do you write out a compound sentence? You use the acronym fanboys. How do you apply this into a sentence? You would say pollution is increasing but many governments are introducing environmental regulations. Now, where is your compound coordinating conjunction? This is your coordinating conjunction. This sentence becomes a compound sentence. This sentence becomes a complex sentence. You can even have compound plus complex and that gets you to a band 7.5 to a band 8.0. So what do you do when you're doing your writing particularly? Because when you're speaking, you need to take a few seconds to phrase your response more comprehensively. Otherwise, in your writing, you basically map out what you need to do. So map it out. You create clusters. I call them clusters for the students. You spend the intro, then you create body 1, and just like that you can create body 2, and then you write out your simple notes. You can create your simple sentences. When you do your sentences over here, you also write down the acronyms next to your rough paper. You write these down just so that you can keep it in mind. And you take this simple sentence, you add it into your writing, and then you can extend by adding either this or this, and you get like a perfect 2-3 liner that helps you reach to a 7.0 to a 7.5 band. Do you get my point? So you write like a simple sentence and then you advance it by just choosing this or this. To have a band 7.5 and above, you need to use this more. Complex sentences are the key. Okay? There is also another thing. When you're doing writing, and you don't just take a look at your grammar aspects, you also need to worry about topic development. And now, because we're running a little out of time, I had an activity for all of you. So just to summarize this, in topic development, I have come up with a framework. You can find this on our page as well. And we use this quite rigorously in our classes. We develop our topics with 5 W's and with the GSE framework. Keeping these pointers in our mind, any question that comes up in task 2 essay, we use this, and we use mind mapping. Like I've mentioned over here, we use this. Then we enhance our idea with the right grammar, and we come up with the final write-up that promises us a band 7, 6.5 to a band. You see how easy it becomes to approach the writing paper? Because I have had several students that would find that because they're in a technical field too much, or because they've just been out of writing so many papers or essays. The last time I too wrote an article or a paper would have been in the 5th grade or the 7th grade. So what do you do now then? Right? Like after so much of it being brushed off under the rug, what do you do now? You apply these strategies. And this is something that we practice and work out in our classroom. And this was an important point of grammar that helps you jump up to another band score. Everyone's okay with this? Understood? Okay, transitioning back. We are now going to move on to the activity. I have so many strategies to share with you guys. All of it is so exciting, to be very honest. If now I will just keep carrying on. There's just so many hacks to the paper that can propel you towards a great band score. And it's really exciting to share as well. But for now, we're on a limited time. But if you register with us, definitely you will be having these resources, these practices all the time. Okay, now here's the game. The game's only for 10, it only has 10 questions, so 2-3 minutes. All the game's done. Now I'm going to be ending it and we will be getting to see the winners. So all of you can come back to my screen. Okay, great. So we have Adnan at the top. We then have Fatima, then we have Manahil, and Afreen and Rafiz is at the 5th. Then we've got the rest of you here. Aliza, we couldn't get responses from your end. Great work. Let's see how many Adnan has gotten correct. All of those. Great. That is very nice. You all had a 66% class accuracy. This word is closest in meaning to mitigate. Now this question was added because in your IELTS you will be having what? A lot of synonyms, a lot of paraphrasing. And that was correct. Then, which is a signpost word? However, good, because what is signpost word? It's the distractors that I talked about. It tells you that now something is going to change. So when someone says, however, talk. IELTS test, how many skills does it have? It has the 4 skills. Strategy helps remember vocabulary. Long-term, great job. Spaced repetition, that was something in our learning methods. And a large number, numerous, great job. Great job on choosing this as an option. In your IELTS speaking, you should be able to extend your responses and using a great range of vocabulary. And then that's it. So thank you so much for taking an active participation in the game. That just shows me how well you all received the lesson today, the masterclass today. And now we are going to be sharing with you a form link in the meeting chat. I did have a few questions in the meeting. Mujahid had network issues, that's okay. Fozia, you have asked from where should I start the preparation at home? Should it be the tenses first? Well, say you should be starting the preparation with us from today. And the form link which has been shared in the Meet, register yourself there. And we will begin with the guided practice. Our classes are starting from Monday for the new batch.